Hello everyone, this is Charlie from the Bloomingdale Public Library and welcome to Blender Armature Basics, where we're going to be discussing how to add bones to a 3D model in order to make it posable. Now I like doing Blender courses because I think it's a very powerful and robust program that's both fun and free to learn, but it's also a good opportunity to advertise our 3D print service at the library. We do have people that have been taking advantage of the service, but it's almost always been stuff that's just downloaded off of Thingiverse. And it's my hope that by putting out Blender and Tinkercad courses that we'll start to see some more original creative submissions. So if you do make something out of Blender or Tinkercad or some other 3D program, you can send it to us to print through our website, and you can go there or come on in and talk to somebody for more details. So with all that said, let's look at what we're going to be learning today. There's basically 3 steps to what we'll be doing today. It's just a small part of the larger rigging process that you can do in Blender, but I think it's a pretty good start. We're going to start off with building the armature, which is basically building a skeleton bone by bone. And it's not quite a skeleton because there's some bones that will be connected to things that aren't a part of an actual skeleton, like lips and eyes. After that, we skin the armature, which is where we attach the 3D model to the bones of the armature. And that usually connects everything automatically pretty well, so you'll be able to pose everything after doing that, but it's never quite right, which is why we do the 3rd step called weight painting the model, which is where we make sure the bones control the vertices that we want them to, no more, no less. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Before we start creating our armature, it helps to have the 3D model already in place. I suppose you can go ahead and build the armature first and the 3D model around it, but you don't see it that often. So I'm going to turn our cube into our model. I'm going to do that by going into modeling mode, by clicking modeling at the top. And I'll get rid of the timeline on the bottom, which is fine because we're not doing any animation today. And it also sticks us directly into edit mode. Now I'm going to use the middle mouse button to turn our model like this. And this is, by convention, the way you want your model oriented, with the x-axis going from left to right, and the y-axis going through the middle, and the z-axis is invisible, but it's going from top to bottom. So this will be helpful for a couple of the mirroring techniques I want to use later. If you don't do it this way, when we start doing the mirroring techniques I'm talking about, things might not reflect the way you would expect them to. So with our cube oriented like this, I'm going to use the right mouse button to bring up a menu and choose subdivide. I'll do it again. And you can also use the window in the bottom left to add some cuts. So more vertices is better. The whole part of building an armature is using bones to move vertices. So if you don't have enough vertices for your bones to grab onto, you're not going to be able to pose your model. So even if you have your model built out and you create lots of bones, if there's no vertices present in the joints, then nothing is going to bend in that spot. So that should be good for what we want to do. I am going to keep it kind of simple. We'll create a head here, extrude, E to extrude, S to make it bigger, E to extrude, E to extrude, S to make it smaller. And that's our head. Go to the side here, select some vertices, E to extrude, E to extrude, E to extrude, E to extrude. And again, if I don't create enough vertices in the arm, then the arm won't be bendable no matter how many bones you put in there. We'll finish up with a leg. Select some vertices. E to extrude, E to extrude, E to extrude, E to extrude. That looks like a thing. So now I'm going to make the model perfectly symmetrical because, like I said before, I want to use some mirroring techniques to create the armature, and it simply helps to have a symmetric model when you do that, but it's not necessary. So to do this, I'm going to go into wireframe mode. I'm actually going to use the 1 on the number pad, which will align things up from the front, and that's how we get to see that blue axis. That's the z-axis that you otherwise can't see. So again, I'm using 1 on the number pad. You can also go to View, Viewpoint, and then Front. And from here, I'm going to select all of one side here, delete the vertices, and now I've cut our little model in half. With that done, I'm going to select what's left, go to Mesh, and go to Symmetrize, and I did not get what I wanted there because of the direction of the mirroring. So this is figuring from left to right, but I actually built on the right side, so we're going from right to left, which means we want to go from the positive x to the negative x. So I'm going to click on direction, go from plus x to minus x, and there we go. And from here, we have a symmetric model with a bunch of vertices that we can put an armature into and eventually start posing. From here, we're ready for step 1, which is to build the armature. To do that, we're going to go into Object Mode, go to Add, and select Armature. When I do that, you can see a bone is now in place in the middle of our model. And you can actually go ahead and build out the armature in wireframe mode if you like. However, I'm accustomed to doing it differently. I'm going to go up to the top and go into Viewport Shading. And with the bone still selected, I'm going to click on the little stick figure guy here, which is Object Data Properties. And then over on the right here, under Viewport Display, there's a checkbox for in front. Go ahead and check that. And now we have our 3D model shaded with the bone visible. It's still inside the model. It's not in front or anything. It's just we can see it now. So whichever way you want to go about it, whether wireframe mode or shaded mode, it's up to you. We're all set to build up the armature. We do that by going to Edit Mode with the bone selected. There we go. Let's have a quick look at the bone. There is 3 parts. There is the root or tail at the bottom. This is where the bone grows from. There's the body, which will determine how big the bone is. And then there is the tip or head, and that is where new bones will be grown from. So every joint will consist of a head of a bone and then 1 or more tails of other bones. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go to View, Viewpoint, Front. And this works because our model is relatively flat. If you have something like a dragon or something, you might need to do a bit more work with a 3D view. But this head-on view will work pretty good for what we've got right here. And what I'm going to do is select the body of the bone, press G to move it, and then slide it down near the bottom. Hit Z to make sure it's lined up, and then click it in place. So the first bone is basically going to be the granddaddy of all the rest of the bones. So you want to make sure it's centrally located. And then we're going to go ahead and select just the tip of the bone, and then I'm going to hit G to move it. And you see as I do, we extend the shape of the bone there. So you generally want the heads and the tails at the joints of your model where you want it to move. And when you want to create a new bone, you just hit E to extrude a new bone. E, and there we go. I want to branch off from the shoulder here now. So I'm going to go ahead and select the head of the first bone again. Hit E to extrude into the armpit there. E again for the upper arm. E again for the lower arm. Now we can go ahead and do that again for the leg. Again, hitting E and come down here. But you see, there's not going to be a whole lot of model moving for this particular bone, so it's kind of just in the way. So what I'm going to do instead is undo that, And I'm actually going to use the 3D cursor here, put that down by the leg, and then go to add single bone. And the reason I moved the cursor is because if you create a new bone, it's going to go to where the 3D cursor is, and if I left it in the middle, it was going to be hard to get a hold of it because it'd be underneath another bone. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and move it down there to create a knee. Move it again to create the lower leg. And now to parent these bones to the main bone, what I'm going to do is go back to the selection tool. Select the leg bone, hold down shift, select our parent bone, and then go to armature and parent. And make a parent. Keep offset, that's fine. So anytime you extrude a new bone, you're basically creating kids, and every bone can have one parent, but they can also have multiple kids. And unlike real life, kids will always follow their parents around, which I'll demonstrate in just a bit. Let's go ahead and name our bones. This is going to be helpful for weight painting later, as well as helpful for producing the other side of our armature. So what you do is select a bone, go over to the side, choose the bone icon for bone properties, and then up in the field here, give it a descriptive name. I'm going to name that body. Honestly, I probably should have made at least another bone for the body, but that's okay. Neck. Head. Alright, for the bones we want to mirror, we actually need to hold to a certain naming scheme. So I'm going to name this shoulder, and then period right. Upper arm dot right, lower arm dot right. So the important part is the period and then the right or the left. I'm going to finish up with the legs here. Upper leg dot right, lower leg dot right. And now with everything properly named, I'm going to go to, we're going to just select everything first. I'm going to hit A to select everything. Go to Armature, click on Symmetrize, and you see when I do that, it produces the other half of the armature for me. If I click on one of these bones, you'll see it's named shoulder left, upper arm left, whatever. And again, the shoulder, upper arm, that part doesn't really matter. It's the dot left or dot right that matters. And you can use dot L and dot R, or if you don't want to use a period, you can use either a space or an underscore or a hyphen. And I don't think you need anything at all if you spell left and right out. And it can be capitalized or lowercase. Very useful tool. So with that done, we now have our armature finished. And again, this particular armature is kind of flat. Oh, whoa. This is why we do it. You'll notice that the legs were put out in front because I didn't make those children of the parent bones initially. So I'm going to go ahead and move those. G. And then to keep them in line, I'm going to hit Y. There we go. That's better. So now we'll go ahead. We're going to go to pose mode. And in pose mode, we get to move our armature around. So I'm going to select a bone. And because this bone is a child without any children of its own, I'm going to hit G to move it, and you see it moves all by itself. If I go up the chain, this guy is actually a parent to this bone, so if I hit G and start moving it around, you see it takes it with it. I go up the chain, and just as you expect, everything moves again. I'm going to put everything back. If I move the granddaddy parent of all the bones, as you might imagine, it takes everybody with them. Control Z to put it back. So that is how posing with children and parents works. So with that said, let's go ahead and attach the bones to the model. And to do that, it's the same as with the bones. We're going to have a child-parent relationship. So I'm going to go to Object Mode, select the model, hold down Shift, select the armature, go to Object, Parent, and I'm going to use with automatic weights. And with that done, I'm actually going to hit X mirror to take advantage of our symmetry. With that done, I'm going to go back to pose mode, move our bone around, and now you see it actually takes the model with it. If I go up the chain here, now we're really moving things. But you might notice, while things are moving nicely, it's not perfect. There's parts of the model that are moving that we don't want to when we start moving certain bones. And that's what weight painting will fix, and we're going to have a look at that next. To start weight painting, first make sure you're in object mode. Select the armature. Shift select the model. Come back up here and choose weight paint. Now you don't have to have the armature selected to do weight painting, but if you don't, you can't control click on the bones, and that's extremely useful. In the case that you don't have the armature selected, you can instead go to the Object Data Properties, which is this green little triangle here, and then select the vertex group that matches the name of your bones to weight paint those vertices. While we're over here in the panels, underneath the Draw panel, because our armature and our 3D model are symmetric about the x-axis, we can go ahead and select the mirror vertices and select mirror X, and that'll save us some time because now we'll only have to weight paint half of our armature. So as we control click on the bones, you can see the vertices that are affected and how much they are affected. If vertices are red, that means they are 100% affected by the bone that is selected. If they are green, then they are 50% affected, and if they are blue, it is 0. And of course there's some colors in between. So if I were to choose something like the upper arm here, you'll notice that it doesn't really affect a whole lot of vertices. Now if I wanted more action going on in here, I'd have to add more vertices to my model. If I check out the neck, you can see the neck bone doesn't affect anything at all. In that case, I'd either want to add some vertices or consider getting rid of the bone altogether. So again, I'm going to go ahead and control left click on an upper leg bone, and you'll see that it affects a whole lot of extra space here. And let's say we didn't want it to be like that. So I'm going to click G, move things around, and you see it takes the whole body with it there. Undo that. I'm going to go ahead and look at our painting options, and mostly we're looking at weight. So if you want to paint something with a 1.0 weight, that's going to be 100% affected. So let's say I were to paint the head a little bit here. Now I hit G, you'll see I'm taking the head with me with the upper right leg bone, which obviously we don't want. Set it to 0. And that effect is gone. So cleaning up here is just a matter of setting the weight to 0 and scribbling over things, and it might be hard to see, but there's actually some lighter colors all over the body here. When you do automatic weight paints, it's usually done by proximity. So it would be the vertices proximity to the bone, and sometimes it's just completely nonsensical. So that's where going in with the weight paint fixes things. You can see the right leg is even affecting the left side of the body. Alright, and you see I actually got a little carried away there, so I'm going to set the weight back up to 100. Paint that back in. And even with wireframe, you can't paint through the model, so you gotta get meticulous and go all around. Oops. Let's see how that looks. That's better. So that's the basics of working with weight paint. And that's also all I have for today. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a good day.